Check the mic 1 2 1 2. What's up, my friends? I'm the Zim. This is the Zim video. This is the Art Professor's podcast. Thanks a lot for tuning in this week. We have some things to talk about. We'll see how the show rolls out, right? We'll see how the show rolls out. All right, here we go. First things first. Well, first thing, let me introduce myself real quick. Short introduction. I'm the Zim. I'm an art professor. I teach at Rochester Institute of Technology this year. I'm on a 1-year contract, so maybe I'll be back next year. We'll see. Maybe I won't. I'm trying to, I'm actually looking for, at this point in my career, I'm ready to look for a long-term full-time position at a place that I feel like is a good fit for me. So, and I've been talking a lot about that throughout the podcast. Feel free to ask questions about it, what that looks like. I'm not going to go into details today. I haven't been applying to any place lately. I've applied to a few places over the last few months, but there's no more. I haven't seen any long-term full-time positions that look interesting to me. So we're waiting. Now we're starting to get into the season of the 1-year positions, and visiting faculty positions will start populating the job boards. So I'll apply to some of those. I mean, they want me to come back. Well, I don't know where it stands. It looks like they don't. I'll just put it this way. It looks like they wouldn't mind me coming back to RIT next year because they've already got me on the schedule for next year, but I don't have a contract or anything. There's no official, yeah, you're definitely coming back. So that's that. Last year I taught at Northwest Missouri State University for a year. Before that, I taught at San Diego State University. Before that, I got my graduate degree at San Diego State University. And before that, I got my undergraduate at the University of Washington. So that's kind of my art academia in a nutshell, but that's what this whole podcast is about. So stick around, tune in, ask questions, let us know what you're thinking about. So for the podcast only, for the audio only side of things, so apologize. Hopefully I haven't lost everybody over there, because for 62, I totally forgot to publish. 63, I've tried to publish when I published it on YouTube, and 62 at the same time on the audio only side. And I was having technical difficulties. I couldn't log into my podcast site thing. So I eventually had to contact tech support in a way or something, and eventually got worked out. So now we're all up to date now on the audio only side, but it was delayed. Everything was kind of delayed. And so hopefully this one will also be on time on the audio only side. So we're up at 64, season 2, episode 64 of the entire run of it, 1 and 2 seasons. Every year, basically every school year will be a new season. I kind of take the summers off, maybe drop a couple here and there if something significant comes up with like exhibitions or anything. I don't foresee this summer. I haven't planned any exhibitions. I haven't been trying very hard with that side of things. Thinking about it, I need to get invited. I need people to know what my thing is all about, both in like how, my theories about being an art professor and academia, my artwork itself being about activism and amplifying important messages. I hope eventually some people out there will start inviting me to go to their school or be a part of their show, but as of right now, it's like, I don't know. It's very difficult for me to try to find opportunities because it's such a long timeline, and then just finding the opportunities that make sense for what I'm looking to do is really difficult, because group shows aren't really a thing for me, and they also kind of cost a lot because it's whatever. There's just a lot of obstacles that I'm just not inspired. But I'll just put it this way. I'm not inspired trying to do group shows. I want to do artist talks and solo shows wherever they look like. I want to do performances in spaces, but I need a little bit of support. I need someone to help me find it in a way, because it's very difficult to find the opportunities. And my experience with getting my 7269 exhibition, I learned through that process that for the most part, solo exhibitions are like a 2-year timeline. It's like you are scheduled out 2 years before, and my work is very now. It's very in the moment. So to know what I might be making art about or in 2 years is like impossible for me. It's not like some people's artwork itself takes months to complete a painting or a sculpture or something, and so that timeline makes sense for them. For me, it's like, no, let's just hire me, like have me do something next month and we're ready, which I'll be doing March 28th. Let's look up the calendar information. I just got another email. I need to follow up with things. March 28th, Mosaic Center, SAU 2510, 2 to 3 p.m. Art, Activism, and Allyship on the RIT campus. So again, I'll be letting you know more about that as time goes on. So I organized that. I reached out to the institutions on campus to find out if there's a way we could collaborate, and now we're collaborating with the Mosaic, which is the sort of the diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of group on campus. So very interesting. Like before the election, we were talking, and I was like thinking, like, man, if depending on how the election goes, will change the conversation a lot. You know, I mean, there's always going to be things to advocate for, but at least if Kamala won, like the advocacy would be agreed with by the leadership. But now the advocacy is anti what the leadership wants. The leadership is anti-diversity, anti-trans, is just basically oppressors. We're living under oppressors right now, and so it's making it so there is genuine things to really get into this time around for this artist talk. And I'm going to be making a piece of artwork centered around the idea of trans allyship or trans accomplishmentship or trans rights, transgender rights, and activism. That's my piece is going to be centered around that, but it's the conversation hopefully will be much broader than that. It'll just be more, we'll see what happens. So that's planning to happen in March. So if you're near Rochester or on Rochester, anywhere near Rochester, and you can make the drive up for the day, I'd be happy to organize something extra as well if you let me know. We could do a coffee meet and greet type of thing, or we could make it more than just the artist talk. I'm fine with that. Okay, so that leads me into kind of my first topic. So normally I start with what's happening. The structure of the podcast is what's happening in my career as an art educator, kind of my experiences of the week, anything that new that came up, and then my experience or what I'm planning to do with my art practice and what I'm doing, kind of catch you up there, and then a little bit of kind of life stuff and other things that might be adjacent to both of those other things. Again, because I consider myself a 24/7, 365 all the time artist, the lines are very blurry between everything, because I see my practice as a human being very much part of my art practice, my practice as an educator very much part of my art practice, and obviously my art practice is my art practice. So this whole podcast is part of my art practice. So but we're going to start off today with talking a little bit about the election. This is the 5th podcast after the election or the inauguration of the Orange Man. And one of the things that's come up in the last couple of weeks, the idea of resistance. Like, I've been very disillusioned and disappointed with how much we're talking about, how much we're actively resisting, how loud we're getting as a society, as people. Like, my campus is very quiet. You don't visually see a lot of resistance to these kind of concepts, these ideas that are happening. I'm disappointed in that. The student body's not very loud and activated, which is disappointing to me. Like, I don't know. It's very disappointing, the lack of visual act. And I understand, thinking about it, like, people need to process in their own ways. Maybe they haven't quite hit them. It hasn't quite hit them yet. And I know a lot of the students probably do feel like in their heart, in their being, and they don't want to be oppressed, and they don't want their friends to be oppressed. They don't want their classmates to be oppressed. But they just don't understand what they could be doing more to be kind of an advocate for that. They don't understand the choices to make, the words they're saying, the actions they do. They could be doing a lot more. They could be more engaged. They could be asking more questions. They could be, there's so much more they could be doing. And I don't see it as a student body, but I also don't see it as an institution, right? Of course, we went over last week, I believe, this idea, like it's a capitalistic institution. It's guaranteed that people in authority in the institution agree or voted for the Orange Man. There's no way that there's not Orange Man supporters in the administrative, that aspect, the running of the business side of an institution. So they're not necessarily going to push back. And then last week we went over the idea that they'll follow the law, which is BS in my opinion, because whatever the law doesn't mean that it's justified, that it's just, if the law is a law of oppression, why would we want to follow it? Why not as an institution do we not want to push back on that? Because they're afraid of money, they're afraid of things. So that's just what I've been seeing. So I'm like, what do we need what needs to happen? I've been seeing things on social media about like questions, like there's this Hank Green is kind of a large social media content creator, asked the question, like, what's it going to take to get more people mobilized? And my response to that was, we need leadership that's able to be with us. We need leadership that everybody, universal type of leadership that people respect, that when we protest at the Capitol or at wherever we decide these protests are going to happen, to generate the kind of numbers we need sooner, we need visual megaphone style leadership, people with platforms that a lot of people respect, to not only be using their platforms to talk about it, but showing up to these protests, like make the event happen. If you're going to a concert, you expect the band to be there to play the concert. So it's the same kind of thing. We want to show our activism and protest, and we need that leadership, that galvanizing kind of person or idea to bring us there. And so that's what I think needs to happen. So we need people that have platforms that are saying, protest is happening here, I'm going to be there, these other speakers are going to be there, like whatever it might be. The march is happening from here to here, we'll meet here, we'll have this talk, So right now it's kind of like protest. And it's like, well, how's it organized? What's happening? Who's going to help usher this whole thing? Who's going to shepherd this whole thing? We need our shepherds, right? That's what we need. I like that kind of idea. We needed the shepherds to help us keep, although people will spin that into, you're just sheep, whatever. Anyways, so maybe scratch that term. But we need people to be there that lead us. So that's what I feel like needs to happen. Things are starting to happen. The protests are growing. I was intending to go, so I recorded a podcast last week on Friday. I was intending to go to a protest on Monday, but mainly the weather deterred me because it's been pretty bad here in Rochester, and I'm not really prepared for the weather, and I'm really paranoid about getting sick. So I decided, I was like, I'll protest online. I'll protest the way I normally do, with just who I am as a human being. Like my art is I am a walking protest, I believe, an active living protest. So, but to go to the gathering, I decided to sit that one out, and we'll wait for the next one to come around. But it still feels like just random people kind of saying, hey, we're all going to protest. And it's like, well, we need the other idea. I think, it's growing though. And as time goes on, the policies that the Orange Man and his administration are trying to implement is going to affect more people. We're going to see it more. We're going to see things like with the deregulations of institutions, we're going to see more people getting sick, and that's going to really affect people's anger toward the like what's happening. I mean, the fact that this idea of like people saying, well, we got to drain the swamp, when they elected the swamp. They've been so brainwashed into thinking they've been gaslit into thinking that the swamp is the people that are actually trying to help them. Like the people that actually care about you, they've been told is the swamp. And it's like, no, it's the other way around. It's the people saying drain the swamp are the swamp. It's like, it's total conjecture. Everything the conservative portion of our society talks about is conjecture and a reflection of themselves. It's like, and they like, and I was thinking about this morning, it's the fact that so many people are so racist is what it boils down. I mean, I don't care. It's they refuse to see the truth because, but if we actually believed taking care of people, that would mean we would have to take care of black people, brown people, Asian people. And like, never mind. Yeah, just get rid of all the people that don't look like me, even if it means I get hurt in the process. And they refuse to see that I get hurt in the process part. They're like, as long as they're getting hurt, I don't see my own hurt. It's like, it's so frustrating. So, also with the idea of resistance and protest, I wrote on my Blue Sky account, our protests need to be peaceful, always peaceful, but intimidating. Like the amount of people that are there, the way, like this, when somebody, when the silence is, when this stoic silence that you can create, like if everybody was, instead of just screaming and yelling and looking like lunatics, which, we want to, for sure. We want to yell and scream and be like, God damn it, what is going on? But if we're just there in silent stoicism, but in numbers beyond, it's like, that is scary, that's intimidating. And just like maybe a chant, maybe a song that just goes over and over and over. And it's just like, and maybe you're marching down the street in unison or some idea. It's like, but it's like attack, attack with love kind of idea. Like this, just be militant in the protest, but not belligerent. Peaceful militants, peaceful intimidation. Like that's what I would like to see us and in our organization is just be so focused on the goal of not tolerating intolerance, So that's where we stand. That's my thoughts on the last. And the other, something I just saw today is, what's happening to Orange Man and his people. Luckily they're not very intelligent. So that's, thankfully, they're not, it would be much scarier. It would be much worse if they did everything out in the dark, but they're doing everything in the light. And so we can all see it. And so it's like you're not very bright. You're just exposing yourself. So as time goes on, things will get better. The other thing too is like, we want to stop the oppression as soon as possible, but the resistance to the oppression will never stop. So even if it gets worse, it doesn't mean it's over. It just means the resistance will change. What it looks like will change. Hopefully we can avoid violence, but if that's what the resistance requires because the oppression becomes to the scale that that's what it'll require. And I never, it's like crazy it's really honestly crazy to think America is at a place where it needs a potential violent revolution to overthrow our oppressors. It's crazy to think that. It's almost, and I think that's part of why I think there's an element of America that's in this kind of like, oh shit phase. It's like, oh shit, never thought this would be the reality of America. But we got too soft. We weren't paying enough attention, and the powers that, the people in charge right now have been working for generations to get to this point. They haven't they never relaxed. Like, for whatever reason, the Matrix decided to put a little more oppression in this version of humanity and said, let's make this reality of humanity, of the universe, of the idea, let's make this one have to deal with oppression more than another one, and see how they respond to it. And so it's just like, there are people throughout our entire existence as human beings that have always wanted to oppress other people. And and they are constantly, they're vigilant. They're vigilant about their oppression. They're unwavering. They're just like, and so, but those of us that don't want it, we get wavered because we feel comfortable. We take a deep breath and go, maybe we're not oppressed right now. Maybe we don't feel it, but obviously there's always been people, and maybe our privilege gets in the way, or maybe we've been, and that's the vigilance of the oppressors, make us feel like they're not oppressing us, right? They make us feel, they comfort us with money, food, and, feeling good, and entertainment, and just different things. They distract us from what they're doing behind the scenes. But like I was just saying, we're fortunate right now that everything is happening in the open. We're seeing it all in the open. And some people are awake to it, and some people aren't, unfortunately. And hopefully we can keep waking up people that aren't awake to it. Because every time I see somebody that still supports, and moving that idea of moving the goalposts, the fact that people cannot see themselves moving the goalpost, At first it was, this is the hard line. The red line is this. If this happens, then we won't support it. Like, I mean, the example right now is, the fact that the orange man was like, we're going to lower prices. First day in office, we're going to get the economy back on track. And all he's doing in first day in office is the exact opposite of that. So everybody that supported him was like, oh, well, he means actually we have to suffer more in order to get the results we need. Like, they're blind to what's actually, they refuse to see it. And then it goes back to the racism thing, because if they admit they can't see it, or if they admit, then it means like, oh, that's actually helping brown people. It's like, or whatever it might be like that, So, yeah. So one of the things that I did between now and last podcast and this one was I got together with my kids. I got together with my kids. I asked them to get on a Zoom with me, and just kind of went over exactly this first, it's been 20 minutes of the podcast so far. I kind of just gave this talk to my kids in a sense, and like, just checked in with them. They're young, 17 and 19. They're not, they don't quite understand it all yet. They're not activated in the space, which is fine, but that's okay, because I think the talk is enough. Regardless if they understood it, it's the fact that I said, listen, what's going on in the world right now is significant. What's going on in our society is significant enough. And I just think that's enough to plant the seed of, be careful, listen. If you hear things you're confused about or confuse you, ask me questions, come to me. We'll figure it out together. So the seed is planted, and who knows where it might grow for them. But the idea of the intention behind the talk was enough. And so for me anyway, and hopefully I just want them to grow up to be compassionate people that care about each other. And I don't want them to turn into, MAGA supporters, like oppressive supporters, and not realize that they are. Because there are people in my family that are supporting oppression and don't realize it because they just haven't put all the pieces together. And they're good people, but they've been influenced by people around them that have convinced them that like the orange man and his policies and his, entourage or whatever is worth giving credence to, and it's not. It's just straight not. I mean, it should have all ended grab him by the pussy. I mean, even before that, though, it should have all ended at that moment. But for whatever reason, America's got too much hate in its heart and doesn't care about that. Just, as long as, I don't know. It's interesting. It's weird. I hate it. I'm really frustrated. So the other thing too is it's a long, I heard this morning, so the orange man and his administration are on a sprint right now to cause as much chaos as possible, to kind of shock and awe, as they've been saying, confuse us. But don't lose hope, because it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And like I just said, even if we lose a few battles, it doesn't mean we'll never lose the war, because the war will rage on for as long as humanity exists. Because there will always be people like me and you that will fight against oppression and talk about it and help try to get the word out and find out what they can do, find out who they can support, keep educating themselves. It's going to be impossible to eradicate every person that disagrees with their point of view, because in their eradication will breed new people. It's just, the example is perfect with what's going on in Palestine. It's like, they say they want to eradicate Hamas or whatever. They say they're trying to go after Hamas, but in their act of going after Hamas, they're radicalizing more people because they're hurting people. They're hurting Palestinian citizens in that quest. And it's like, well, you're just creating the monster you're trying to destroy by your actions. You're creating the monster you're trying to destroy by your actions. And that's something we should remember. And that's what is, thankfully, in some ways, that's what's happening right now. The orange man is creating the monster they're trying to destroy because they are hurting the people that they were trying to convince they weren't. All right, we'll move on. I took a long time with that topic. We'll move on to what's happening in school, in my school experiences this week. So one of the things I've been talking a lot about, so it occurred to me. So I'll start with this. So this is a good bridge. So I started Tuesday and Thursday is when I teach. In all my classes, I started the class with two subjects. The first, on Tuesday, I told the class that they have the most power when it comes to if the institution of RIT ever starts to go a path that they don't agree with, they have the most power. They need to stand up for themselves. And so I just told them that and kind of, just told them that, basically. So it ties into what we've just been talking about. The other thing, on the next day, on Thursday, I was contemplating this idea of what it means to be a college student, what it means to go to college. I've been talking a lot about what it means as an art professor, what I believe art school should look like as a college level art school versus kind of what it is right now, and different things. And then one of the things that came up, so I had my students meditate. We'd meditate at the beginning of every class, and at the end of my meditation, I was like, okay, before you open your eyes, just ponder what it means to be a college student. Are you getting out what you want out of it? Is it matching your expectations? Or, just like, what's going on in that field? Because I had a thought myself of, I think there's something about college, like what my vision of what going to university, going to college means versus, so I've just held this belief, but it doesn't mean it's what it really means in a sense. And so I wrote down this thing of, am I allowed to treat college as something different than high school? An example of that is how time is used. So for me, I really feel, my intuition tells me students have been so trained by this high school mentality of education, and they haven't been trained out of it for when they get into college, which what I mean is they feel like it's all about busy work. It's all about assignment, work on it, turn it in. Assignment, work on it, turn it in. And like that's what it's just a cycle of like, assignment, work on it, turn it in. Just this kind of a cycle. And it's like, well, no, it's like slam on the brakes. We're forgetting what I think the most important part of being in this environment is the analyzation of why you're even there and what it means. Like, what's the importance? Like, why are we even doing this assignment? Why does it mean? Like, how are you relate? Like, and so for me, it's like how time is used in the classroom. And I feel like so many students just don't want to have critical, analytical conversations about the environment, about they're just like, they just tune out the moment they're not either getting an assignment or working on the assignment. They're just tuned straight the fuck out. And it's like, no, this is the real college, is when you're talking about why you're even doing this. And so when I was analyzing it for myself, thinking about, okay, what am I allowed to do as a professor? Am I allowed to just say, today we're not going to work on anything. We're just going to talk about this. We're just going to think about it. Let's have a conversation. And I feel like this weird pressure to be like, no, you can't do that. They got to be busy work all the time. Busy. And it's like, no, I don't think that's, it's like, I don't think that so that's part of why I'm looking, that's part of why I want to get somewhere where it's I'm on tenure. I'm like there, I'm part of it. So I'm creating the culture, because right now it's like being a visiting faculty 1 year term, contract employee. It's like you feel like you have to just fit the system that's already there versus creating a culture that you believe in. So there's a pressure of that way for me to kind of conform to something, and I know I'm not 100% conforming. I'm just doing what I believe matters. But yeah, that's a thought I had. So in my thought about what I think university should be, am I even allowed to think that way is basically the question. It's like, because we're getting, like you've heard me say this before, it's like college is becoming high school 2.0. It's not even what it was when I was in college. Like the whole idea, it's just becoming so churn them out, like industrialized kind of idea of education. It's like the actual critical thinking is leaving. It's like it doesn't feel like it exists enough in the space. But I'm hoping my students are starting to understand that I'm adamant about the critical thought, and it needs to happen. But there's so many students that just tune out. It's like, I need to figure out. This is my challenge for myself, is to figure out how to keep those, to remind them. Maybe I'll just say it. I don't know. It's hard to be super direct sometimes, but maybe I'll just say, like, look, this is, I don't know. I have said it. Actually, I have said it, but it's whether they hear it is another thing. Saying it and hearing it are two completely different things, right? So on a personal note, in a sense, so I was saying, I've been thinking about this. I managed to walk past another faculty member that I'm getting to know. They were on sabbatical last semester, so I didn't see them, but I walked past them, got to talk with them for a moment. And one of the things I said to them, and I was thinking about, and I wrote down to talk about on the podcast, was it's nice. This semester is the first semester that I've had a chance to repeat my courses, and I have no new preps. So I'm not teaching a new class. I'm only teaching the same classes I taught last semester. And so I'm able to elevate. So I'm able to not think about the prep as much, and I can get more tuned into the students, refine the assignments, like really see things, like work on my grade book thing that I've showed you about, like refine the overall idea of being a better instructor. And I feel like I'm doing that. Like I feel like as I was grading some students, I'm being able to remember who they are a lot better, those kind of things. And I wrote down this week, I feel like I understand my students better at an earlier phase. I think it's because I don't need to think about assignments as much. Like, so I feel like I'm kind of understanding each of my students a lot. And I feel like there was, and maybe it's because I'm feeling this way, but over this last week, I feel like my students are starting to understand me better too. And starting to go kind of get my energy, my vibe, and I feel like most of my students, if not 100% get me, are over 50%. You know, it's like, I don't feel like at this point I have any students that just hate me. I think there was like a couple at the beginning of the semesters that had pretty high guards up. They were like, for whatever reason, they either heard something about me or it's just their personality of themselves. They kept a guard up, like real, and it's kind of hard to navigate. It's kind of hard to figure out what they really thought, and because it was just like, come on, let your guard down, man, or whatever, you know, person, let it down. I'm here to support you, but you gotta come. We gotta meet each other halfway, kind of. I can't go all the way to you because, you know, it's not gonna work. You gotta meet me somewhere. But I feel like, and maybe, I don't know, I'll keep you posted. Maybe that'll turn around next week. Next week is my midterm meetings that I do. So at the midterm point of my classes, I meet with each of my students individually. So it's coming at a good time. I really feel like I'm starting to understand people or my students, and I'm getting to, I can see their work ethic. I can see their work itself. It's a great moment to be able to talk with each of them individually and just check in and see how I can support them even better, either through the class itself or beyond. Okay, so that pretty much, so that's a lot of what my experience this week was like teaching and doing that. Last podcast, I told you about, there's a bag on the floor. I'm not gonna empty the bag out, but in this bag is those books I was telling you about. I bought a bunch of books that are gonna be a part of my little library of banned books, I call it. But this week, I got the little library. Like, I got a little cart. It's in this box. I haven't assembled. I'm going to keep it in the box and bring it to campus on Tuesday. I'm probably Uber in a little bit earlier, assemble it before my classes, get my little library of banned books up and running and started. So I'm excited about that. So next podcast, you should see a picture of my little library of banned books in action. So looking forward to that. So one of the other things so this week as well, I guess we're still sort of on the school related topics. You've been hearing me. I'm really, part of this is a hybrid school life thing. I've been really frustrated about, economics, losing my car, the fact that it's snowing. There's just a lot of a trifecta or more of factors that has just really been kind of weighing. It's been like a little bit of a weight on me that's been hard to deal with. And getting to schools, in that it's been difficult because it's snowing. And so it's either take the bus, save money, take the bus. It takes me an hour and a half one way on the bus. And then I have to be out in the cold and different things. Or take Uber, and it's $100 a week, which I can't afford. $400 a month is too much, is way too much. Like, that's a car payment. Why would I be paying $400 a month on Uber when I could just, if I wanted to make a car payment, so luckily it's not going to last forever because I'll be back on my bike. But so for it's been, since it started snowing, so it's been where we're in January. So all of January, February, we're almost all of February. So like 800. We've probably spent about $1,200 on Uber since I started. because it's varied in price and extra trips and stuff. Way too much. I can't afford it. So what I was like this week, I was like, okay, I'm gonna take the bus. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna stop spending money on Uber. I'm gonna take the bus. So I get up Tuesday morning, 6 o'clock, to get the bus. My class starts at 11. Normally I leave my house, when I take Uber, I leave my house at 9 o'clock. I tap Uber on 9 o'clock. I get to campus by 9:30, 9:40 because it kind of waits a couple minutes to get here. So we leave probably by 9:10. Takes a half hour, whatever with snow and stuff. So that's kind of the norm. And then I have like an hour of just chill before I need to go and set up my classroom and stuff, which I like. I like to get there early. I don't like to just show up the moment my class starts. So in order to make that happen on the bus, I got to get up at 6, get myself ready. Turns out I left my house at 7:20. It takes me 20 minutes to walk to the bus stop. The bus should arrive around 8 the bus should arrive around 8 o'clock, 7:50, somewhere around there. I think it ended up arriving around 8 o'clock. Takes like an hour from that point to get to campus. So I'm on, I didn't look at the clock when I actually arrived at campus, but essentially, but basically the point of that story is 6 o'clock is when I woke up, when I had to get out of bed. That whole day, I was so tired. I was like, if I wasn't talking to the students and I was just sitting kind of waiting, I was like, my eyes were falling. Like I couldn't, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is a bad look if I'm up in front of class and I have my eyes closed. So I should watch that. And I don't know. It was like, it was rough. And then, so the end of 8 o'clock p.m. is when I'm able, done for the day. On that day, on Tuesday, it was like 7:30. Nobody came to office hours. I was like, screw it. I'll just head out now. I went down to the bus stop and I couldn't figure out the app for the bus timing didn't seem to be working right. I was like, I can't stand out here in the cold waiting for the bus. So I went into this room that's not too far away and I could kind of see the buses come up. And I had the app and the timer going to make sure I wouldn't miss it. And I don't know, I might have missed it or it just was delayed or whatever, but I went out again, standing in the cold. I was like, this is not working. This is not working. So I said, screw it. I just ordered an Uber and took an Uber home from that point. And I was like, you know what? Between the cold, the time, I'll just pay the money. I'll just pay the money because that was really hard to make worth it. I mean, if I don't have any money, if I'm out of money, I guess I have to do it. But right now I have money. I just can't save anything. It's one of those frustrating things. Like I have the money, but it makes me go to zero every month if I do this. So it's like frustrating. So I decided just on Thursday, I'm just Ubering in. So Thursday I just Ubered in and back and home because it was like I was hopeful, but it did not work out. It was not working out, unfortunately. So and I'd learned the Uber rides this week that I took talking to the drivers. I learned that this winter has been the longest winter they've had in a while. Like I guess it hasn't snowed quite this much. And so the fact that it's just snow all the time is a little bit of, well, I don't know if it's not. It's like, I mean, Rochester gets this way, but it hasn't been this way for the last couple of years, I guess. So, I don't know. I'm just hoping by like early March, it really starts to thaw out so I can start riding my bike again. Get the exercise again and save the money. All right. Okay, the last thing we'll talk about. I mean, art practice-wise, I plan to do this piece that's behind me, those of you that are watching on YouTube. It's about 50% done, I'd say. So I have a long way to go, I suppose. I've been working on like one character every session. So I'll move over to Cloud, which is a Final Fantasy character. So I just keep working on that. I've been planning my piece that I'm gonna be doing for my artist talk at the end of March. So basically, once March 1st hits, I'm gonna plan some days where I just power through that process, because it'll be more like my traditional multiple portrait pieces. And so I'll just set up a few sessions where I just kind of bust them out. I am planning to do this representation of a trans flag, and I'm gonna ask some people, but I was able to find, I mean, it may work out. I was able to find, like, there's this, so the trans flag is like light blue, like a pink color, and a white, which I'll use silver for. I was able to find the kind of pink color for this metal leaf that I want to use on it. I think this one, oh, there's a piece already out. So this pink color, if you can see on camera, is it looks a little, it's hard to see on camera, but it's the right pink. It's the right color. But I couldn't find the light blue anywhere online. There's nowhere. So I have this darker blue that I hope will be an acceptable alternative for the representation of the trans flag. And then I'll use silver in the middle. So maybe the fact that instead of white, it's silver, maybe it'll still translate the right way. I'm going to make like a mock-up of the trans flag with the colors I have and ask people in my community if it's an acceptable alternative, and I can use that for representation of the trans flag. Maybe I'll do that this weekend, make the little mock-up. But that's my plans for my art practice. That's what's going on right now. And then the last thing to talk about that's related to my art practice in some ways is like my second job, which is kind of turning into a second job more, and it's looking like it's developing into a second job more than it was before. But basically my game streaming is my second job. I've been streaming every single night since October, basically, for all intents and purposes. Intent, I don't know. I've been streaming every night, every day at some point, and it's starting to pay off. We're starting to get some more subscribers. We're at currently, right at this very moment, we're at 8,254 subscribers on my YouTube channel. So that's 1,746 subscribers away from 10,000, which I'm really excited to hit, which we'll hit. I mean, we're getting 100, almost 200 subscribers a month lately. So, you know, it'll take, obviously, if we only get that many every month, it's going to take, you know, a year. But we could get lucky, and it could keep growing, and it could get there sooner. So we'll just keep working on it. But we are, you know, making a little more money. People are starting to donate during the live streams more often. But and I don't, you know, hopefully it won't speak too soon, but I'm feeling like it's starting to pay off. Like the hard work of streaming every day is starting to pay off. And so I don't know what to say about it other than at a point a month ago even, or at a point it could have looked like, why are you doing this if it's not? But this is why, is because it's starting to pay off. It's starting to grow, and I'm learning about, you know, that what consistency means on live streaming and on content creation. It means every fucking day. It means every freaking day. When I thought it meant something else a little bit at times, and I'm learning, like, no, consistency means every day. So we'll keep doing it. We'll keep doing it. So keep that in mind too. If you're you want to be content creator, every day. And so that's the problem. Like because of the nature of gaming and the idea of it, and what it makes it easier for me to accomplish every day. Whereas if I I would love it if my art practice was that thing that's growing my accounts, my platforms, my content. But it's significantly harder to create art every single day than it is to game every single day. It's exponentially harder. It's mentally more taxing. It's physically more taxing. It's so much harder. And it's just, just pure entertainment aspect of it. It's boring. There are times where it's way more boring. You can't have music going. It's just me talking, and like if the engagement's low, it's hard. But with the gaming, there's an audience. The game music's happening. The game visuals are happening. I can use it as a conduit to lead people to my other things and other ideas. So it's not all for naught, and it's fun. That's the other thing. And it's a legitimate, if anybody tries to tell you it's not a legitimate source of, work in a sense these days, they're just not paying attention, because with the internet, what's going on, gaming is a full-on industry in many different ways. Obviously making of them, but playing them and entertaining people through them is just as valid as any other thing that you do. And so go for it if you want to go for it as well. But the bottom line is, I'm excited for what's happening. I got excited like this a long time ago, and it kind of went. So I don't want to get too excited. I'm more, what's couched, or what's the word I'm looking for? More reserved in my excitement, because I understand it's like, it could just flatline again, and certain people stop coming and whatever. But it does feel, I'm hopefully optimistic that it will keep growing for me. And yeah, so thank you everybody that has been a part of it. If you're listening to this, obviously the podcast community is part of it too. The podcast community is very, very small. Probably the smallest out of all my communities. The people that listen to my podcast, you're the smallest group. You're the smallest group. But I do appreciate you. All right, that's it for today. All right, well, almost, I don't know, I think once I edit this down, it'll probably be about 15 minutes long, because I see 54 minutes at the moment. So thank you very much for listening. Make sure you comment on it. Find it on YouTube so you can comment. Subscribe to the YouTube so we can build it. Share it out with people. And as always, be loving, kind, and patient. Peace, my friends. Bye.